Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang saranang gacchami, Dhammang saranang gacchami, Sanghang saranang gacchami, Dutiyampi Buddhang saranang gacchami, Dutiyampi Dhammang saranang gacchami, Dutiyampi Sanghang saranang gacchami, Tatiyampi Buddhang saranang gacchami, Tatiyampi Dhammang saranang gacchami, Tatiyampi Sanghang saranang gacchami. Welcome, friends, to this Sunday Dhamma class, focusing on the Dhamma Pada verses. So the last couple of weeks we've been going over the verses in the fourth chapter of the Dhammapada, the flowers chapter on the simile of flowers. And today we've gotten up to verses, we're going to be looking at verses 53 through 57. And with the focus on virtue and the analogy of how virtue is similar to the fragrance of flowers. So I'm going to read the Pali verse for verse 53 for those of you who have a Dhammapada by your side. Yatapi puppara simha kaira malagune bahu evam jatena machena katabam kusalam bahum. And the translation of that is, as from a heap of flowers many a garland is made, even so many good deeds should be done by one born a mortal. So again, if you've ever seen them making garlands in India or in other places, they have a big heap of nice, freshly picked flowers, and somebody's sitting there with a string, and they're, threading these flowers onto the garland from this big heap of flowers. So even so, many good deeds should be done by a mortal. A mortal means somebody who's subject to death. So we're all born and we're all subject to death. But the time of death, of course, is not generally known, unless you're, of course, reached old age and you have a terminal disease. But ordinarily, there's so many similes of death catches the unaware person and sweeps them away. And the good deeds. So the only thing we have to take with us when we die. You can't even take one little hair with you when you die. But the only thing we take with us is the accumulated karma, and especially the merits that we've accumulated during the life by observing precepts, and basically by not accumulating, bad karma, by living unskillfully and so on. So the virtue, virtue is somebody who's virtuous. That means, who lives by the precepts and basically is, purifies their mind. It is said that it gives off a fragrance. Now, this could be metaphorical, but it can actually be a kind of a fragrance. And I've known, like my own yoga teacher, Swami Gitananda, he, he at times, we could kind of get a faint a fragrance coming from his body, and it wasn't because he was wearing flowers or wearing perfume. And so, there's some kind of truth to that. But basically, you could say it's more metaphorical, that the mind that's well established in virtue, and is free from self-centered greed and in hatred, because basically a virtuous person would be pretty much free from selfish greed and hatred, which gives off a kind of a bad smell. So it may not be an actual smell, but people that are virtuous, you tend to like them, or they have a good vibration about them. And so you like to be around them because they're kind and they speak, gentle language, and they abstain from, harsh and speech, negative speech, and all this. But people whose speech is very rough and, they're always anxious and so on, then, you feel leery around this kind of people, because you don't know whether they're going to explode, or something. So that's considered to be like not a negative fragrance. So anyway, the term fragrance is, you have to take it kind of metaphorical in this sense. Anyway, so many good deeds should be done by a mortal. That means we should do more good deeds. When we talk about good deeds, we mean basically not doing bad deeds, but it also means doing good. That means by helping others and practicing generosity, practicing meditation, being kind to others, and generally being of a good, a good service and, to in life, rather than causing people problems and making them angry and so on. We accumulate these merits. And merits means the good vibrations that go with us, that help to attract also the positive and good vibrations. And the three ways of accumulating merit within the Dhamma are the practice of generosity and dana, sila, and bhavana, or generosity, practicing sila, and purifying the mind through meditation. So anyway, I'm going to read the story that's connected with this verse. So Visakha was a lady at the time of the Buddha, the Buddha's chief female lay disciple. And she was a wealthy person. And she was a benefactress of the Buddha. And she built a monastery for the Buddha and the monks at great expense. And she was delighted by that, because she was delighted that, the Buddha and his monks could reside, nearby their town, and they didn't have to travel long distances to be able to, go and listen to the talks of the Buddha and other monks, and just have the power of their virtue around them. So that delighted her and their children and their grandchildren, and she was always, seen, very in a very happy mood, and singing praises and so on. And so people reported that to the Buddha. They went to the Buddha and said, "Hey, that Visakha, that lay lady who built this monastery, she's always singing and, very joyful," and so on. And then based on that, that's why the Buddha, he then recited this verse and saying that Visakha was doing so. She was joyful and singing and very happy because she had fulfilled her aspiration from the past of wanting to build a monastery for the Buddha. And so she accomplished that, and it made her very much happy. And then the Buddha added that, that's a great meritorious deed, helping to support the Sangha, because when you support the Sangha, you support the Dhamma, because then the Sangha is around and they can share their understanding of the Dhamma with others, and that is how the Dhamma helps to grow and helps other people who need that kind of support. So anyway, that's the story connected with this verse. And again, that we shouldn't put off the doing of good works and good deeds, and also meditation, practicing generosity, sila, or living by the precepts, and meditation. These three things are the most powerful forms of generating merit, and which is the good karma that will help to make our spiritual life more smooth and to gradually and steadily progress. Because when people give up the Dhamma and they give up spiritual friendships and so on, then they get easily misled and sidetracked and wander off in other directions, often not good directions. So this next verse 54 and 55, these are kind of twin verses. Na puppagando pativatam eti na chandanam tagara malikava satanjagando pativatam eti sabadisva sapuriso pavati chandanam tagaram vapi upalam atavasiki etesam ganda jatanam sila gando anuttaro. The perfume of flowers blows not against the wind, nor does the fragrance of sandalwood and jasmine, but the fragrance of the virtuous blows against the wind. The virtuous person pervades every direction. So this is, if you have a perfume or flowers and the wind is blowing, it blows that perfume or fragrance, in the direction the wind is blowing. So it blows it away. But the perfume of a virtuous person, that means, as I was mentioning before, like the Buddha and Arahants and other, virtuous persons, that that fragrance doesn't get blown away by the wind. It pervades all the directions. So as I was giving that example of my yoga teacher, that we could sometimes detect a subtle fragrance when we were around him. And when the wind blew, it didn't blow it away. So that was there all the time. Whereas like if you're burning incense or wearing perfume, the wind blows, can blow it away. So, and so there was a story about these two verses about the fragrance of flowers. So the Venerable Ananda, who was the Buddha's chief disciple and who memorized all the sutras, he asked the Buddha if there was any fragrance that wafted equally with and against the wind. That means any fragrance of flowers or incense or some kind of fragrance that wouldn't be blown by the wind. And then that's when the Buddha then replied that the fragrance of virtue wafts in all directions. So again, the Buddha, most of these Dhammapada verses were spontaneous utterances of the Buddha based on some questions that people were asking him or on a certain situation that he saw, and these spontaneous verses came up. Does anybody have any questions so far on these verses? Let's see if there's any chat question come up. No. Okay. Well, this next verse, actually, I'm skipping one verse. I'm going to verse 57. And the title of it is that rebirth consciousness of arahants cannot be traced. So anyway, I'm going to read this verse in Pali. Tesam sampana silanam apamada viharinam sammadana vimuttanam maro magam navindati. The translation is, Mara finds not the path of those who are virtuous, careful in living, and freed by right knowledge. So basically that means arahants that are freed by right knowledge. Of course, there can be many people that can be virtuous and careful in living, but they may not have attained the state of liberation. But in this particular verse, it is the freed by right knowledge indicates that the person would be an arahant. So Mara finds not the path. That means they can't trace their mind. So, when we die, basically our mind is kind of magnetized with the sum total of all of its accumulated karmic memories. The good memories as well as the bad ones, or the negative types of thoughts, fears, worries, anxieties, as well as good types of thoughts. But the heaviest type of thoughts at the time that you die is sort of like a magnetized vibration, and that could be traced, or by somebody with mental telepathy, or somebody like the Buddha could determine where a person was reborn, because his mind could kind of trace that vibration of the consciousness to where it would have been reborn. So, so there's a story about this also. So there was a monk named Godika, and he had a certain type of disease, and he couldn't take it any longer, and he committed suicide. To use the expression that you read about often, he took the knife. That means they cut their throat with a knife to commit suicide. But just as he was cutting the throat, he was able to develop insight. He hadn't been an arahant before that. He'd just been some previous lower stages. But upon cutting the knife, I guess it was such a powerful thing. And he knew the Dhamma, but but he had this very painful disease that he couldn't bear it any longer. And because he wasn't an arahant, because an arahant wouldn't commit suicide themselves, but people that are a lesser stage than an arahant, they still might do that. And but at the time of cutting the throat, that on that feeling, it was powerful enough to develop insight into anatta and attain arahantship, there and then, actually before the death moment. So between the time they cut the throat and the time the actual consciousness left the body, that the person attained the full enlightenment. So that's what happened to this Godika. And then Mara, the evil one, was searching for his rebirth consciousness. So it says Mara here, but it's difficult to understand this Mara, because it's sort of like the devil, we would say, but it's an aspect of our consciousness. But there's some controversy around that. In some places you read it was an actual, some kind of a being, this Mara. But anyway, I'm going to tell another story, not Mara, but there was a Brahmin. So there was a Brahmin, some holy person, thought he was holy, and he had some psychic power. So whenever somebody died, or after somebody died, people would bring him the skull of that person, and this Brahmin would then, hold the skull up and kind of knock on it like this, in different places, and thinking that he would be able to hear that vibration and know where the person was reborn. So he got very popular by doing that, whether he was just, a shaman or, he didn't really, no one else is going to know, right? I could knock on a skull and say, well, that person was born in hell or in heaven, and you wouldn't know it, right? So the Buddha found out about this guy. Monks, he came to the Buddha and said, what this Brahman's doing? He's people are bringing him skulls and he's knocking on them and then telling where the man was reborn. And then the Buddha says, tell that Brahman to come. Tell him I have a skull for him. I want him to do that. So the Buddha got the skull of a real arahant. So the Brahman came there and got the skull of the arahant, and the Buddha said, please find out where he was reborn. He didn't tell him he was an arahant. He just said, here's this skull. Some monk had died, where has he been reborn? So the Brahman, got the skull and was knocking on it, and, knocked all the way around, and, and then he kind of had a stumped look on his face, and he said, I don't know, I can't tell, He said, and then the Buddha told him, because that person was an arahant. He didn't leave any mental trace. Then the Brahmins go, oh, Brahman didn't know that that was possible. So anyway, that's just an interesting little story. So anyway, but just shows, come back to that, the verse that when the mind is liberated and due to, of course, the virtue, cultivated the virtues of, dana, sila, and the bhavana over so long that, it cannot be traced, or, it would, the wind won't blow it anywhere. So that is and even there's other sutras, we might have read some at some point, where the Buddha talked about even attaining jhanas. When you attain the jhana, the first, second, third, fourth jhana, or the arupa jhanas, is like putting a hood over a Mara. You temporarily blind him, because when you're in a jhana, the mind isn't thinking any thoughts really, and it's not leaving any traces or thoughts of greed, hatred, and delusion, because that's what Mara relishes in: greed, hatred, and delusion. That's why they call it Mara. And that's why we all have Mara in our mind, because we all have greed, hatred, and delusion to a certain extent until we reach the stages of purification. So Mara is connected with this greed, hatred, and delusion, and that's what they feed off of. That's why they don't like people that meditate and are trying to do virtuous practices and to spiritual path, because that's a threat for the Mara. So like we know that when the Buddha was on the night of his enlightenment, Mara came to tempt the Buddha with some dancing girls, and then created a big thunderstorm to try to scare the Buddha off his meditation, because he didn't want the Buddha to attain enlightenment. This was before he was the Buddha, Siddhartha Gautama. So that's just an example of this idea about Mara, but it's basically coming from within our own mind. You shouldn't try to think of Mara as something outside of yourself, because it's very difficult to do that. That would be equivalent to some religious teachings that there's a devil out there that's tempting you to do this and do that. And people say the devil made me do that, the devil made me do that. But it's our own mind that makes us do these things. The accumulated karma and so on. So anyway, let's see. Okay, we're going to do one more verse. Finish up this flowers. I guess no other questions came up from that. Okay, this last verse we're going to go over. Yata sankara danasming ujjitasming mahapate padumam tattajayet suchigandam manoramam evam sankara bhutesu anda bhute putu jane atirochati panyaya sambuddha savako. So the meaning of translation of this verse: as upon a heap of rubbish thrown on the highway, a sweet-smelling, lovely lotus may grow. Even so, amongst beings that are not famous or not overly, intelligent, a disciple of the fully enlightened one outshines the blind worldlings in wisdom. So I'm going to read the story about this. So there was a monk or a person who was a devotee of a rival sect, like some rival sect. As we've talked about at the time of the Buddha, there was other Brahmin sects, rivals, the Jaina religions, and a lot of other ones. So, and they were kind of, you might say, rivals because they didn't like the Buddha very much because the Buddha became very famous. Anyway, this devotee of this alien sect devised a means to humiliate the Buddha and his disciples. But the Buddha discovered the devious plan of this other ascetic and succeeded in converting this person to his teaching. And we've seen that in other sutras where these jealous monks from other sects tried to go and debate the Buddha or blame him for doing lots of things. But the Buddha wound up 9 times out of 10 converting these people to become his disciples. Anyway, due to a lack of wisdom, the Buddha remarked, some could not realize the goodness of his disciples. And he compared the ignorant persons to the blind and the wise to those who have eyes to see. And actually there's another story of a young monk who became a monk out of faith, but he couldn't meditate it. He was a little bit dull-witted, you might say. And he couldn't remember the teachings of the Buddha, what the Buddha was teaching and so on. And he couldn't make much sense out of them. So, then he thought, he should disrobe. And other monks would have been telling him, you should disrobe, And so he was a little bit dejected. Then the Buddha came and he said, here, take this flower. And hold this flower in the hot sun, hold the flower. So this monk was holding this flower, and then because of the hot sun, the flower wilted and lost its fragrance and its beauty. And that person got enlightenment from seeing that. Somehow just observing that very quickly, how a fresh, fragrant flower in a hot sun, just kind of before his eyes wilted, that was enough to open up the mind. So on the surface, this person looked dim-witted or not very intelligent, but you don't know what is just underneath the surface in our unconscious mind. If given the right kind of opportunity, it could waken up. So anyway, that's just another story to illustrate that in our mind we have both accumulations of wisdom, of the inherent wisdom, the natural wisdom, and then of course our accumulated negative karma and delusions. And usually in most societies, the delusions are the strongest because that's how most societies and people are caught up in their superstitions and they're clinging to their culture passed down on generations. So the inherent wisdom has been submerged and repressed in most beings, but at a certain point it starts to come back up. So that's the end of the flowers chapter, and Doesn't look like there's any questions, any more questions that came up in the chat. But if anybody has any questions that they might want to just ask by unmuting themselves, then you
Yeah,
can
Bhante, I
go
have a
ahead
question.
Okay.
My question is about that that man who was committing suicide because of his miserable disease. And you said that he, just when he kept the knife against his throat to commit suicide, he got enlightened.
Well, he
So,
might have actually cut it. It didn't give it details, but he cut his throat. But you don't maybe die instantly when you cut the throat. It takes some seconds or minute or two, to bleed out and then die. So maybe it was, he actually cut his throat, but before he actually died, because that insight was already kind of there just underneath the surface. It was that momentous fear, the death, that enabled that to come up, and he was able to grasp the meaning of anatta and attain enlightenment before his consciousness actually left the body. At least that's what I infer from that. The details to a lot of these stories are not told necessarily, so you have to kind of infer them a little bit. But what was your question about that? Did you
so
ever?
my question was, the curiosity was that how come he got enlightened as soon as he was performing the act of suicide?
Well, as I said, that act of suicide could have triggered off the wisdom that was just underneath the surface. The pain that he was experiencing because of whatever disease it was, of course, was basically a superficial thing, and that kept him from being able to meditate. But previously, he had been a monk already, and maybe he had already attained, maybe he was a Sotapanna already, or maybe a once returner. We don't know exactly, he didn't say, but anyway, and there's other examples of just before people died, they attained enlightenment. And it, logically speaking, it doesn't make sense, but there's a lot of things in this world that, we can't figure out with our logical conditioned mind.
Can I ask another question, Bhante?
Okay.
So this is about, again, the curiosity about Gita Nanda's. You said that all of you kind of felt a fragrance from him. You're sure it was not the fragrance of the incense? Because I'm sure they, in India, they burn a lot of incense and fragrant flowers. And
Yeah, but this was a distinct, different kind of, fragrance apart from that, and it had occurred when we weren't in the temple burning incense or things like that, or necessarily with flowers around. But it was much subtler than that. It's difficult to describe in words these kind of things. It's like, we have so many subtle sensations, and when you meditate and when you gain a little bit of samadhi, you can feel sensations and observe thoughts and mental activities that you would never experience in your ordinary unconcentrated state of mind. And so, because it tunes you in. See, when the mind becomes calm and is no longer being harassed by hindrances, either kind of half drowsy or lost in thoughts, it's like tuning a radio frequency to into a different vibration. There can be a radio station 99.8, and there could be another one, 99.3, and you won't hear that, but if you just shift that a little bit, the dial, you could tune into the other vibration. So when we develop mindfulness and concentration and our hindrances go down, it's like moving that dial of the consciousness, it shifts. And you can then experience these subtler types of vibrations. And a person who has developed that himself, it could be even stronger. Anyway, it's hard to actually describe exactly what these things are.
Thank you, Bhante.
You're welcome. Prashant has a question now.
So, Bhante, the virtues which you mentioned, now, are you looking at a perspective of Buddhist virtues or some virtues like?
Can't hear very well.
He's asking about virtues.
Yeah.
Like the virtues which we hear from Dhamma, like is it universal virtues, like which is or something which is from Buddha's perspective, virtuous, which he describes, which is
the Buddhist perspective is always universal perspective. Well, it contains both. But basically it means that vibration of consciousness.
Bhante, what was the question? I'm sorry, I didn't get the question.
It was a question about that the virtues that we were discussing in these Dhammapada verses. So are they the mundane, ordinary virtues like, kindness and generosity and observing precepts? Or are they some other kind of universal virtues? But those virtues are universal virtues. It's just that they've been tarnished and tainted by the greed, hatred, and delusion in the minds of beings and in the societies and in general. So that, but for the Arahant, these are universal virtues, because anybody who attains a higher states of consciousness, and if you have 5 or 6 people in a jhana at that time, let's say in that 30 minutes or hour that a person is in jhana, then their mind is in a state of virtue at that time, because it's no longer emitting any type of negative vibrations, you see. And that would be the same in any kind of consciousness. An arhat's consciousness purified of greed, hatred, and delusion, a sotapanna's consciousness, a once returner's consciousness, somebody in jhana. But of course, in jhana, you can't maintain that all the time, because you have to come out of the jhana, and then that vibration will change back. But when you're in the jhana itself, cut off from all the 5 hindrances and filled with that light of concentration and so on, then that itself is a kind of because it's universal in the sense that if every living being could be in that state, then it would be equal. So that's about the only way I could, try to describe it.
Thank you, Bhante.
Okay, any last question?
So, more question.
There are questions in the chat, Bhante.
Are there?
Yes.
See. That verses are from Dhammapada. This is Fabiana. Yeah, all the verses that I have been going over are from the Dhammapada. And the verses today are from the 4th chapter of the Dhammapada, the chapter on flowers. And the man killed by the cow after listening to the Buddha is the same case of becoming awake just before dying, isn't it, Bhante? Yes. Actually, yeah, thank you, actually, Fabiana, for bringing that out, because that's a popular story in the suttas. So we were talking about this guy who cut his throat before dying. So he did that on purpose, right? But there's another story of a man, a monk from another sect, who came to the Buddha and wanted to learn meditation in brief. Maybe he thought he might die. He could have had an impending idea that maybe his life was going to end, but he didn't purposely take his life. But the Buddha taught him the meditation about, in brief, about in the seeing, there's only the seeing. In the hearing, there's only the hearing. And there's the thinking, there's only the thinking. That means there's no I or self or me in the act of consciousness. It's just the conscious knowing, the pure knowing. So that was the Buddha was telling this monk, take that as your meditation subject. Whenever you hear something, it's just hearing. It's not I am hearing or I am hearing something. It's just hearing, the vibration of hearing or seeing, tasting, smelling, touching, or even thinking. So he told this monk very briefly, this was a meditation in brief, and the monk, he got it. I said, oh, that's cool. Okay, I'm going to do that. And so he went off. And then it said a couple hours later, monks came and told the Buddha, hey, that monk that you gave that meditation subject to, you got killed by a cow, so what's going on here? He asked the Buddha, what did you give him, some death meditation? And the Buddha says, no. What happened was this monk, he was contemplating as the Buddha had told him, and he came to a road and a wild cow was, or a running cow was coming down the road. It had, horns. And the cow gored this person in the ribs, and he dropped down on the road and died. So this person didn't say that he did that on purpose. But maybe he had a premonition that was going to happen. But as the horn was going in, the only thing in his mind was just feeling. There was no idea, oh my God, I'm going to be killed now. Or that cow's coming after me. No, he didn't have these kind of thoughts in his mind. You might have heard the sound, was just hearing, and feeling, and he attained enlightenment before he hit the ground dead. So that's what the Buddha told. He says, the monks came and wanted to know what happened, and then Buddha told him that he didn't hassle me with a lot of other questions. He took that meditation in brief and applied it, and then at the time of death, he was able to attain enlightenment. So yeah, it was a similar kind of thing, but in the case of Godika, he deliberately took his life, deliberately did it, but the other case, he didn't really know. I don't think he wanted to get gored by the bull, but it just so happened because maybe his mind was totally in meditation. Maybe he didn't see the bull coming down the street. So, but anyway, thank you, Fabiana, for mentioning that, because yeah, they are similar stories.
So Bhante, the lesson in this is actually Fabiana gave a good example of the clarifying what I had asked you earlier about the knife, the suicide episode. So the lesson is that instead of seeing it as I am seeing, I am hearing, I am dying, it's just seeing, hearing, and dying.
Yeah, you're experiencing anatta. You're experiencing the emptiness of the consciousness, that there's no I, me, or self. That
right.
The consciousness. You're experiencing just the pure vibration of awareness without any of the greed, hatred, or delusion in it. And if you can maintain that, when the consciousness leaves the body, you can attain enlightenment, liberation from the samsara.
Yeah, without the self being involved in all this.
Right. Yeah. But all these other people have meditated before. It's not that it come out of nowhere. People have meditated, and you're all meditating, and you may not think that you're getting any great insights, but it's accumulating little by little. Whatever meditations you're doing, whatever Dhamma practice, it's accumulating little by little, within the unconscious mind. And we
Yes.
never know when it's going to just, kind of open up on the surface. And some of these experiences, some powerful experience like that, it can be enough to cause this accumulated wisdom, which is just there underneath the surface, to open up.
Yeah, Bhante, I guess that is why regular meditation is so important,
Yes,
isn't it?
yes.
Because it does accumulate
It
day
accumulates.
after day.
But sometimes it needs a powerful stimulus. Let's say you have a can of soda, right? And you shake it up. But if there's no hole in the lid, it doesn't do anything. But if you puncture the lid or take off the cap, then right? So the same way, we may have this accumulated wisdom there, or at some degree. And then in a certain meditation, you could have a deep insight, because all of that stuff, that accumulated understanding is there. It just needs some kind of stimulus to allow it to break through. And
Right.
that take many forms. It could take a death,
Right.
or it could take so many other ways. Particular good meditation in Zen. If you've read Zen stories, there's a lot of Zen stories about monks who meditated for years but didn't get enlightenment, and they're working out in the garden and they hear a rock, hit a hollow bamboo, and just that kind of sound opened their mind and they attain enlightenment. They call that sudden enlightenment, but it's not sudden enlightenment because they had already done the groundwork before that, but it just needed some kind of little stimulus to open the mind. Yeah. Okay, friends, I think we'll... what?
You mentioned this.
So this example is Satori, which is sudden enlightenment. Yeah, that's come from the Zen tradition. There's a lot of stories in there, okay, friends, so let's take a few minutes break and then come back, and then we'll do some yoga stretches and have our meditation. Okay? See you again in a few minutes. Okay, friends, go ahead and start some deep, slow breathing and a few stretches. Just stand straight, relax your arms and hands at the side. Just gently close the eyes, feel your feet pressing the floor. Try to feel the height and weight of the body over the feet. And then begin some deep, slow breathing, a 3-part breathing. After expanding the chest, hold the air in the lungs a few seconds. Then feel the relaxing contractions of the out breath. And combine these movements with that same deep, slow breathing, repeating each movement 3 times. The whole time, keep the attention focused, centered in the body, feeling the sensations generated by the exercise. So you can open the eyes to observe me leading you through this. So on an in-breath, raise the arms over the head, interlock the fingers, turn the palms up, Stretch the head back. Look up at the back of the hands and stretch upward. Feel the sensations. The out breath, turn the palms down, touch the top of the head. And again, in breath, palms up, straighten the arms, head back. Bend back a little bit. Out breath, touch the head. Once more. Third time, hold that upward stretch longer. Arch backward. Release the fingers. The out breath, arms back to the sides. Just relax. Just close the eyes. Start to feel the inner sensations. Or just feel where the clothing touches the skin on the surface of the body. Just remember the present moment of standing. Standing. Sort of mentally just watching the body standing there, just letting go of the thought. On the next in breath, push up on the toes, raise the arms over the head in this way, facing the hands toward each other about 6 inches apart, and stretch. Out breath, come back down, arms to the side, heels to the floor. Again, in breath, up. Out. In. Out. Just relax. Keep the mind focused on the body. Feel the feet pressing the floor, the arms and hands at the side, clothing touching the skin on different places, the head balanced on top. Just remember standing, standing. Then we'll do the knee bending. On an in-breath, push up on the toes, raise the arms up front. On the out-breath, bend the knees and lower down, balancing on the balls of the feet. In-breath, push up. All the way up on the toes. Out. In. Out. The out breath, relax. Feel the increased heartbeat. or other sensations. Remember standing. Can now spread the feet apart, at least 3 feet, wider the better. We'll do side bending. Just let the hands touch the side of your legs. Breathe in. On the out breath, bend over the right side. Let the right hand slide down below the knee. The other hand resting on the other hip. In breath, lift up. And the other side, out breath. In breath. Again to the right, out breath. In. Out. Once more to each side. Relax. Close the eyes. Feel the whole body exactly as it is. Each foot pressing the floor, hands touching the sides, clothing touching the skin. If you happen to hear any sounds wherever you might be, it's just hearing. Or any thoughts going through your mind, it's just thinking. It's present moment awareness. And we'll do the forward and backward bending. Breathe in. On the out breath, bend forward. Let the hands come down to your knees the first time, but keep the head up, looking out straight ahead to flatten the spine. In breath, lift up. Move the hands under the buttocks for support. Let the head go back. The out breath, gently bend backwards, not too far. Keep the eyes open. In breath, carefully lift up. And again, out breath forward. Let the hands come below the knees, about halfway if you can. Still keep the head up. Flatten the spine. Feel the stretch in the back of the leg. In breath up. Again, the back bend, out breath. Bend back a little more. In breath up. And third time, let the hands come down to the feet if you can, and hold that position longer. Feel the stretch in the back of the leg muscles. The in-breath, come up. Once more, the back bend. In-breath. Straighten up and relax. Feel the whole body vibrating, pulsating, the activated life force. Present moment awareness. Now bring the legs together. Stand straight. Finish with the head turning. On an in-breath, turn your head to the right. Look over the right shoulder. Turn your eyes to the right further. See some spot behind you. In-breath, turn the head 180 degrees back to the left, concentrating into the neck vertebra. Look over the left shoulder. In-breath, back to the right. Out-breath, left. In-breath, right. Out-breath, left. On the in-breath, let the head stop in the center. Feel the whole body standing, standing, standing. The natural present moment awareness. Grounded, centered in the body, present moment. Okay. So now we'll come back to our seats, get ready for the sitting meditation. Watch the mic. Okay, friends, you ready for our meditation? As usual, I'm going to turning off my videos. Help focus in your own body and mind. Just try to sit straight. Align the back of the head and the spine in a straight line. Try to feel the natural inward curve of the lumbar spinal column. Just gently close the eyes. And bring your total attention down to feel that spot where the buttocks press the seat. Just feel that solid contact of weight of the body to the seat. Just feel that pressure or hardness. See if you can feel each of the buttocks, some sensation in each of the buttocks, all that flesh being pressed together against the floor, creating all kinds of sensations. And just remind yourself of sitting. Sitting, now this body is sitting. And if you can, you're going to move your attention down the legs to the knees and rounding the knees, moving down the lower leg into your feet. Just try to feel first the heel of the foot, each foot, sensations in the heel. And in the arches of the feet. Just focus your attention on each of these spots. And then feel the toes. Feel one foot at a time or both together. Feel where the sensation of the socks touching the skin of the feet. Basically, just try to feel that aliveness of the feet. So many different little sensations. Heels and toes, subtle pulsations. And just remember sitting, present moment awareness. It's like looking through a microscope. Feel the subtle sensation in the feet. And now let the awareness come up to feel your hands and fingers where they touch together or where they touch your legs. Try to feel the subtle pulsation, tingling sensations in your fingers. See if you can notice the outline the thumbs or fingers, where they touch together. Just feel that organic aliveness in the hands and fingers. Then feel the weight of the arms hanging from the shoulders. Relax the shoulders. Feel where the clothing touches the skin of the shoulders or arms. And remember sitting. Now moving up, feel the head balanced on top of the neck. And try to gently straighten the spinal column upward, the back straight. Feel the head balanced on top, like balancing a basketball on top of a broomstick. Keeping the chin lifted up, level to the floor. And feel your face. Imagine skin stretched over the front of the skull, forehead, the nose, the cheeks, the chin. Start to feel a different sensation, subtle prickling sensation. As though you were watching your face from the inside. And feel the lips touching together. Feel the sensation of the dryness or moistness in the lips. And feel the tongue laying in the mouth, where the tongue touches any teeth. Feel the raw sensation. Be aware of any saliva in the mouth, the water element. Sensation to swallow. Now move the awareness up to feel the eyes resting in the socket. The eyelids stretched over the eyeball.
Bhante.
Just try to hold that outline of the sitting body in the mind's eye. Then begin some deep, slow breathing again, like we did in the yoga session. Just take a few seconds and expand the abdomen, rib cage, and upper chest. Hold the air in the lungs. Several seconds. Feel or imagine the blood, oxygen going into the bloodstream. Feel the relaxing contraction of the out breath. Just take several more deep, slow breaths like that, cultivating this present moment awareness. Breathing in, letting go of the past and future. Breathing out, sitting here and now. Breathing in, letting go of the past and future. Breathing out, sitting here and now. Breathing in, feeling the whole body. Breathing out, feeling the whole body. Again, now we're going to count the breaths from 1 to 10 to develop a better concentration. With the next expanding in breath, mentally count to 1. Feel the brief pause. With the contracting out breath, count 1. The next expanding in breath, 2. The out breath, 2. In breath, 3. Out breath, 3. In breath, 4. Out breath, 4. In breath, 5. Out breath, 5. In breath, 6. Out breath, 6. In-breath 7. Out-breath 7. In-breath 8. Out-breath 8. In-breath 9. Out-breath 9. In-breath 10. Out-breath 10. Now discontinue the counting. Just let the breathing return to its shorter, uncontrolled rhythm, but continue to feel it. Keep the attention focused on the subtler movements of the abdomen, stomach, rib cage, chest. Feel where the clothing rubs against the skin in those places. That's how you know that you're breathing. Just try to maintain that present moment of awareness. In, sitting, out, sitting. This body just sitting and breathing. It's the ongoing, continuous connection to the present moment. Try to feel the 4 phases of each breath, expanding in-breath, the brief pause, contracting out-breath, the brief pause. During the brief pauses, feel that outline of the sitting body. In sitting. Out, sitting. Just letting everything else come and go in the background. Sensations, sounds, thoughts. Just keep that perception, knowing, sitting and breathing in the front of the awareness. Or if you like, you can kind of visualize or feel the air as it enters the nostrils, into the lungs. With the out breath, the air leaving the lungs back out through the nostrils. You can use that to focus of the attention. Feel all the different little sensations. It's like looking through a microscope. Just try to get the feeling that you're a scientist sitting in the laboratory of the body, looking down the microscope of concentrated awareness. Notice how each breath is different. Sometimes longer, sometimes shorter. Sometimes it's an easy breath, sometimes a difficult breath. It's always changing. Especially try to feel on the outgoing breath, the last bit of air go out of the lung. And the next in breath. At the same time, be alert for hindrances arising, drowsiness, various thoughts. Drowsiness arises, check the posture, sit more straight. If thoughts come up, just recognize it as thinking. Just let them go, disappear. Stay connected to the breathing body. In sitting. Out, sitting. In sitting, out, out, sitting. Keep coming back to reground, recenter in the present moment. Take some deep, slow breaths from time to time to help maintain connection to the body, keep the oxygenated blood charged up. Be able to identify the hindrances when they arise, apply the appropriate antidote. It's balancing mindfulness and concentration. Concentration is the ability to keep connected to the breathing body. The mindfulness is the alertness for hindrances arising or other distractions. Noticing subtler sensations or thought. Try to notice more and subtler details, sensation coming and going through the body-mind process. The breathing is there in the center, but all around it, and other sensations in the body can be felt. Unpleasant, painful sensations, pleasant sensations, neutral sensations, various thoughts or urges or ideas trying to occupy your mind. Try to observe the flow of impermanence, how all these sensations and thoughts are just coming and going, arising and vanishing. What perceptions or thoughts arise in the mind triggered by that sound contact? Sabbe sankhara anicchati yada panyaya pasati atanibindati dukhi Isamango Visuddhiya Dukkha Patthacani Dukkha Bhaya Patthacani Bhaya Sokha Patthacani Sokha Hontu sabbe pipanino. All conditioned things, the five aggregates of this body, mind, and world are impermanent. They're arising only to change and vanish. When one sees this with the eye of wisdom, one becomes disenchanted with suffering. This is the path to freedom. May the suffering be free from suffering. May the fear struck be free from fear. May the grieving be free from grief. In this way may all beings live with mindfulness and wisdom. So again, I spend the last couple minutes of the meditation sending out thoughts of friendliness, best wishes to ourselves and all other beings. Try to combine that with some deep, slow breathing. After breathing in, hold the air in the lungs. Imagine and feel that as metta, the oxygenating blood going out to the body and mind, healing energy. Feel that relaxation of the out breath. Just take several deep, slow breaths like that, cultivating these thoughts. May I be well, peaceful, and wise, free from greed, hatred, fear, and ignorance, free from the pain, sufferings of body and mind brought about by such unskillful thought, speech, and action. May I have the patience, strength, mindfulness, and wisdom to meet and overcome all difficulties in life. May I be able to continue to deepen my understanding of the Dhamma, the practice of meditation, to help free the mind from confusion and suffering. May I be well, peaceful, and wise. I'm sending these same thoughts outwards to all other beings, especially if you breathe in, hold in the breath, the out breath, just imagine these waves of metta thoughts going outward across the fields, through the towns, cities, countryside, eventually across the whole earth. You could send some specific vibrations of metta towards your family members or other people you know that are suffering. Just wishing all of them May they all be well, peaceful, wise, free from greed, hatred, fear, and ignorance, free from pain, sorrow, and sufferings of body and mind brought about by their unskillful thought, speech, and action, and from the karmic interactions with others. May all beings have the patience, strength, mindfulness, and wisdom to meet and overcome all difficulties in life. May all beings be able to hear the teachings of the Dhamma, to learn and practice meditation, to help free their minds from confusion and suffering. May all beings be well, peaceful, and wise. May all beings be well, peaceful, and wise. It's like a mantra reverberating throughout space. Well, peaceful, and wise. Now to finish, I invite you to join chanting the word sadhu 3 times slowly on a long out breath. Take a deep breath. Sadhu. 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 Place the hands at the edge of the knees. Take one more deep breath. Stretch the head back, arch your lower spine. Pull the hands against the knees to arch backward. And lift the head up on an in-breath, and on the out-breath, press the chin to the top of the chest to stretch the neck vertebrae. And lift the head up level on an in-breath. And relax on the out-breath. Put a smile on your face. Okay, friends, so thank you for coming and joining our Dhamma meditation session today. And hope to be able to get a few moments of some peacefulness in body and mind, some insights. That's the way we grow little by little. We grow the accumulation of that relaxation and insights, in the nervous system, the mind, even though we might not feel it dramatically, but it all accumulates at some point. It helps us to gain, deeper encouragement, confidence, insights, levels of transforming awareness. Don't forget, mindfulness a day keeps dukkha away, suffering away. It is the day keeps confusion away. By the way, for anybody out there who normally comes to Saturday afternoons, meditation sessions, the AIs, this coming Saturday, I'll be out away from the center. So we won't be having any afternoon meditation in person at the Low Center on Saturday. But the following Saturday, I think it's the 30th of February, the 31st.
Following Saturday, we won't have any.
Oh, that's right. Okay, February 6th. Yeah, that will be actually that will be the Saturday afternoon geared for beginners. Anybody lives in the neighborhood or within a 30